Welcome to the stage, Eddie, Hejka.
I've learned to believe in miracles, and our son Sam has been our teacher. About 25 years ago, when Sammy was 18 months old, my wife Michelle Fecto and I were looking into doing foster care or special needs adoption. And one agency we went to gave us this long questionnaire. Would you be willing to take a child with cognitive impairments? Yes. Who's been physically abused? Yes. Who has violent outbursts? Yes, of course, because we were young, we were in love, and we were going to create this loving, stable household. Sam would be our oldest. He'd help with all the younger ones, and he'd be a great example for all of them as well. Plus in my youthful arrogance, I thought I could be as good a dad as my dad, maybe even better. So I'm confidently checking, yes, 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 yes. Then I get to one, and I'm like, I think it's important to be self-aware, to know what you can do, what you cannot do, and there's no shame in that, so I checked no to autism. It's too much. Which probably explains why, in subsequent years, as we were fostering, I was the last to accept the regression that others saw and what every expert evaluation said, that our son, ironically, our birth son, Sammy, has autism, as well as Tourette's. And I know, but I checked no. I checked no to autism. But as they say, men plan, God laughs. And it was my denial, my deep denial that prevented me from seeing that transformation from that bright one-year-old sitting in my lap as I read Goodnight Moon and asked him, "Where's the mouse, Sam?" "Eh, mouse, Tata, eh, mouse," to this 3-year-old screaming for an hour at a bare wall and lost in Sammyland and gripped by these powerful obsessions and compulsions that made every family outing an adventure and led more than one stranger to call him an animal or say he didn't belong in public. But in public's exactly where he belonged. You see, I'd switched from denying the situation to confronting it. And my wife was working 70 hours a week. I was a stay-at-home dad, and every single day I was out with all the kids in the neighborhood, at the library, at the park, finding any kind of classes we could take, music, art, Special Olympics, sports, just a grocery store, the hardware store. But all these were greatly complicated by Sammy's obsessions and compulsions. He had these things that he had to do every single day for like months or half a year or a year and a half. Like one stretch where he had to open every single window in the house, and then we'd have to walk around outside, and he'd look in every window and say, "Outside." Then we'd go inside, and we'd look out every window, and he'd say, "Inside," and then we could close all the windows and leave. Or the other period where he would just randomly, or seemingly randomly to us, knock on people's door, whether we knew him or not, and ask them, "Do you have a bathroom upstairs?" We didn't have a bathroom upstairs. Or his penchant for disappearing, wandering off. We'd be in the backyard and with all the kids, and we were like, "Shit, where's Sam?" Or if we were out and about, I'd be counting heads, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shit. And the rest of the kids knew if it was a quiet place to just be still, and we'd listen for, his hooting and hollering was like a homing signal, and we'd find him, But if it was a bustling place like the zoo where we used to like to go and where he once went over the barrier at the gorilla exhibit, well, we got to know security quite well. So it was a workaround for the rest of the kids, but we kept Sammy out in the community. But that wasn't enough, because I remember when we first got the diagnosis that Sammy had autism, or actually about the 4th or 5th evaluation, I came to the same conclusion he had autism, and it finally got my thick skull that this was the truth. I walked around for months with that feeling. You know that feeling you get when you've just finished crying? Sobbing, that exhausted, just wrung out feeling. I never cried. I just walked around day after day with that just having cried feeling. And it was it was exacerbated by sleep deprivation, because Sammy never slept through the night. But my wonderful, insightful wife, Michelle, told me, Eddie, it's okay. You're just grieving. I'm like, grieving? She said, yes, you're mourning the child you thought we had. You've got to learn to accept and appreciate the Sammy we do have. And I said, to hell with that. I'm fixing this. It was probably the guilt from the years of denial, because, in autism they say early intervention is key, and had I blown this window of opportunity for him? Or maybe it was the fear of what the future held for him, or what the future held for all of us. But I was determined to save Sammy. And in the autism community, there's people who disagree when you talk about autism as a disability. They say it's just a difference. And you shouldn't speak in terms of a cure, because what? You want to cure my son of who he is? And I understand. And sometimes I agree. But of the 18 children we've parented, there's only one, Sammy, who we were afraid to have outlive us. And I jokingly say, well, I'm going to live to be 120, and Sam will be past 90, and the rest will be up to him. But if there's any parents here of adult sons and daughters with disabilities, you know that after I'm gone fear is real. So we got involved with all these different parent networks, trading ideas about treatments and therapies and whatnot. And some of them worked. I've lost track of how many we tried, but some worked, at least a little bit. Lessening some of the more severe behaviors. Like Sam used to hate to be touched. And for a while it got so severe he couldn't even stand the feel of his clothing on him. And of course, if you can't stand the feel of your clothes on you, there's one simple way to fix that, much to the embarrassment of our other children's friends, like, Sammy's naked, or the customers at the store, right? Sam, you got to put your clothes on. We got to go home. It's like that. But we did sensory integration therapy, and it reduced that hypersensitivity, and he's able to keep his clothes on. That and other things, helped, a little. But I remember he was about 9 years old, and I still hadn't given up the notion that I could save him from autism. And we started hearing anecdotes about this drug, this medication that parents were trying, and it was showing great results. And they were getting their doctors to prescribe it off-label, and they were giving it to their children, and their children were showing tremendous improvement, especially in communication. And communication is key. It's critical, so that, in human relations, so that maybe someday, Sammy might make a friend. And I know in social media nowadays, there's all this noise shouting down and mocking parents of children with autism before we question. Sorry, I lost track. If we question whether environmental toxins and/or vaccines may have contributed to our children's autism, and our willingness to try these seemingly crazy treatments. But if you've seen your child, recite the dialogue from a 2-hour-long movie by memory, yet unable to respond to a simple question, or punching himself in the face, or remove a perfectly healthy adult tooth with a butter knife, compulsively darting into traffic to see if he can make the cars go skeet, there's no limit to how far you will go to save your child. So we learned of a study that was a drug trial that was going to happen for this medication to see if it had any widespread effectiveness for kids with autism. And this medical center affiliated with Baylor Medical Center in Texas was going to do it. And I got all the paperwork, I sent it in, and a while later they contacted us and they said Sammy qualifies. He met the criteria for the study, and just barely, because they wanted young kids, right, under 10. Sammy was like 9.5. So to me it felt like, this was the last chance for him. But then they told us, well, he didn't have to come just once or twice. He'd have to come one weekend a month for a year to Texas. But my wife, Michelle, says, it's okay. We'll take out a second mortgage. We'll do this. But a few weeks later, I remember it was a Saturday, Front door opens, somebody yells, "Anybody home?" And our front door is always opening, someone's coming in. And it's my sister-in-law, Betty. I said, "Hey," my brother Mike's wife. I said, "Hey, Betty, what's up?" And she sits on the couch, and she looks really serious. And she says, "Eddie, the family's been talking." I'm like, "The family's been talking?" I'm one of 11, my wife's one of 10, and with all the husbands and wives and everybody else, that's a lot of people talking. And she says, "We are not going to let you and Michelle remortgage the house." I'm like, "You're not?" "No, we're doing a fundraiser for Sammy." I'm thinking, okay, cool. We'll raise a little money. We'll see how much we need to borrow. She goes, "What do you want to do? Spaghetti dinner or pancake breakfast?" I don't know. It was Saturday morning. I was thinking of pancakes. So I said, "Pancake breakfast?" She said, "Fine. I'll take care of the arrangements for all the food and the decorations. You just got to get a time, a place, and get people there." I'm like, "Cool." So we live in this wonderful Detroit neighborhood, and our community association, North Rosedale, donated the use of the community house for Sammy's fundraiser. And my wife made up this flyer, and we put it in all the neighborhood newsletters that go out monthly to everybody in the community. And my wife, we addressed a whole bunch, and we had just dropped it into the mailbox, it seems, when checks started to arrive in the mail. First from my wife's family on the East Coast and elsewhere around the country, and then neighbors, people up and down the street knocking on the door to give us a donation for Sammy. People up and down the block, people from around the block, people from miles away, people we knew, people we didn't know, but they knew Sammy. Like my wife's out front working in the yard, and his car pulls up with 3 elderly women, and they said, "Excuse me, are you Sam's mom?" And she says, "Yes." He goes, "Well, we can't make it to the pancake breakfast, but we wanted to help out." And so, Michelle says, "Oh, that's very sweet," and they do introductions, and they each pull out their purses, and they straighten out some bills, and they give it to her. And Michelle says, "Thank you, that's real kind." And they said, "Oh, it's nothing, anything for Sammy, anything for Sammy." And that's what we kept hearing over and over again, anything for Sammy. And the morning of the breakfast comes, and it's just hour after hour of people pouring in to eat pancakes and support Sammy. And as Michelle and I went from table to table, we just kept hearing all these great Sammy stories. "Oh, I remember when I met Sammy for the first time. He knocked on our door and asked us if we had a bathroom upstairs." And of course, my husband let him in, and we walked upstairs, and he looked at the bathroom, and he says, "Okay, goodbye." Then we go to the next table, and the woman says, "My son played baseball with your boys, Terrell and Mike. And remember Sam would always run out onto the field, and you'd want to sit next to Terrell and dig in the dirt? Terrell could be playing shortstop or pitching, and Sam would want to sit next to him, dig in the dirt. Time!" But after a while, all the coaches and the umps got to know Sammy, and then it'd just be like, "It's Sammy time out." So Terrell could walk him off the field. And you go to the next table, and our neighbor Sharon says, "Remember when all the kids would get on their bikes and scatter around the neighborhood in a search party for Sam when he'd wander off?" Or you go to the next table, and the woman says, "I haven't seen Sam in 3 years, and he just told me my age and my birthday, and my son's age and birthday." And that's how it was from table to table to table. All these great Sammy stories. And as my wife and I stood there in the center of that community house, we knew we were witnessing something beautiful. And in that single pancake breakfast, we raised $15,000. It's more than enough to cover all the expenses for travel and that to cover for the study. And though the drug didn't show any widespread effectiveness for kids with autism, in the course of the treatment, we learned that, in the tests they ran, that Sammy had high levels of heavy metals in his system, including mercury, lead. And the year following the study, we did chelation, to leach those heavy metals out. And in short order, at nearly 12 years old, he began to ride a bicycle, read, and write. But that wasn't the miracle. See, we bore witness to the miracles. We stood there that day in that community house, enveloped by all that love. Because for years I'd been fighting for a miracle, but a water and a wine kind of miracle, that miraculous transformation from Sammy with autism to Sammy without autism, the kind of change that people attribute to an unseen God. But what we got instead was a fishes and the loaves type of miracle, where small acts of caring spread from one to another in this expanding ripple of kindness and love in a community woven together by Sammy that at that moment made me unafraid to die and leave him behind, because I knew there were so many who would say anything for Sammy.